it's the cool job when you get out of college. You get to go to the bars and clubs, buy beer for people, pass out the swag, do all the cool stuff.
And going back further to the 70s, whatever, we started a beer can collection, my brother and I. We still have like 3,000 or 4,000 beer cans.
Sounds like from what I've heard from you, that Tucson is a really great community. And the city probably loves you guys. You're a watering hole. I'm Allan Cogan. Join me as I highlight small businesses with interviews on site at distilleries, breweries, and more. My mission is to share the stories of the awesome people behind the craft. Welcome to Crafted Conversations. Gary, Jamie, we're here at Barrio Brewing Company in Tucson, Arizona. Thank you for making the time for having me here. I'm here for the American Craft Spirits Association convention, doing spirits things. And I'm like, well, I'm going to hit up a local brewery while I'm in town, make the most of my time while I'm out here. I'm from North Carolina, so East Coast to West Coast. It's kind of cool to be here, so thank you.
We're excited to have you here. Yeah. Welcome to Tucson.
Thank you. Tell me a little bit about yourselves and how you got into Barrio and what Barrio is.
Want me to start?
First.
Well, I started out life as a chemical engineer. I had a career in that, more like environmental engineering. And this was back in the 90s, all right? So I'm been around a little while. And I was living out in the Bay Area. The microbrewery industry was just kind of starting to really grow. And I wasn't really happy being a consultant and so forth. So I guess I started out on the pathway of I thought I wanted to open my own brewery. I actually went to a conference way back in 1997, the Craft Brewers Conference in Atlanta, Georgia, to learn more about the industry. But ultimately, I decided maybe I want to get into the industry first and learn more about it instead of risking my life savings. And maybe I didn't really want to be a business owner. So that was the origin of my career. I did go partway down that pathway to open my own place. Actually started writing a little business plan. Moved back to my hometown in Indiana with the idea of opening a brewery, which somebody else beat me to the punch like 6 months after I moved back. Fort Wayne, Indiana opened their first brewery. And I'm like, you know what, let's just, let's go through a little brewing school, which I did, the American Brewers Guild, to get a little background in the brewing science part of it. I didn't really need any engineering or other technical, background. So I did that and then got my first job in Tennessee's first self-distributing microbrewery in Sevierville, Tennessee, East Tennessee, Smoky Mountain country. And then basically that took a life on a life of its own. I this brewing is pretty fun. I love it. Then I just wanted to work there a couple years. Then I wanted to get more experience. So let's go work at a big production brewery, which I did down in New Orleans. Abita Brewing Company.
Yeah.
It's still around, quite large.
Yeah.
So I got a lot of exposure to things that I would have never seen in a smaller brewery. But then ultimately I made the decision. So I'm about 4 or 5 years into this brewing career. And I was like, really, I would like to be in a brewery restaurant, so that's how I glommed on to the next, my next stint, which was a big brewery restaurant group, multi-chain outfit. Started in Memphis, Tennessee, and then back to New Orleans. Then I worked for them for a long number of years, like 17 years. But they were always private equity money. They kind of did some things that, they weren't happy with the profitability of some of the restaurants. Let's just say it. Long story short, they just closed that down.
This is Gordon Biersch.
Yeah, it's Gordon Biersch. I was the Gordon Biersch Brewery Restaurant Group. And then that was about 5 years. It actually was coincident with COVID, which is fantastic, right?
It's our favorite years, right?
Yeah. So this is like February 2020. We're just learning about COVID, right? We're still really don't know what's going on. But we had this great beer festival here in Arizona, the Arizona Strong Beer Festival. And that was actually the last thing I did for that company. I had just done that festival, had a great day, get home like 7 o'clock on a Saturday night. And my boss calls me up and says, "That was your last day of business. We're closing down all the Gordon Biersch locations in Phoenix." And so, like everybody else who was unemployed for a while, I just kind of, wandered in the wilderness for a while. But it wasn't too much longer that, I got in touch. Just so happened Barrio was advertising for a production manager. I think we had our first phone conversation with Jamie, a phone interview. And I don't know, maybe she can talk more about that, but the rest is history. I ended up down here. It really wasn't too long of a gap. I was already down here like in July of 2020, so really wasn't out of work very long. And I really loved it. I mean, this has been great. I always knew Barrio. I knew the founders. I'd already, we all know each other in the industry, especially within the Arizona microbrewery industry or whatever. So I know Dennis and Tana, the founders of Barrio, and I always got along with them really well. I respected what they'd done as the long time brewery in Arizona. So
yeah,
it was like, I'd love to come down here and take over the reins and continue the tradition and the success of Barrio.
That's awesome.
So there's my long-winded response to how I many fun times along the way or whatever. But so just shy of 5 years, I guess, is what I'm at now.
Very
at
cool.
Barrio.
Very cool. So now I want to hear about the interview process.
Oh, it was strict. Oh, it was grueling process. There was beers involved and a lot of good times.
Well, what about you? How did you get into this?
So Gary's all the technical side of the business. My history is more on the sales and marketing side. So I went to school down here at the U of A. So that's where I first became knowledgeable about, at the time, Gentle Ben's, because that's what we started as.
Right.
So Gentle Ben's is right off of University. So pretty much if you went to the University of Arizona, you went to Gentle Ben's. You had their beer. That's how it was.
Sure.
Right? So I graduated from the U of A, not really sure what I wanted to do in life. I was looking at a bunch of different things. But I actually got a job in Tucson, because I'm originally from Phoenix, for the wholesaler for Anheuser-Busch down here in Tucson.
Wow.
So Golden Eagle Distributors, that was my first real job in the world. And it was like, it's the cool job when you get out of college. You get to go to the bars and clubs, buy beer for people, pass out the swag, do all the cool stuff. So that was my first introduction to this industry overall. When I first started there, a couple other people that I worked with, they're like, "Oh, this is like a 2-3 year job. You'll go into something else afterwards." And I'm like, okay, whatever. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the beer industry. I really loved the people. I really loved the different elements of it and learning more about it. And so I stayed, and I started on like the on-premise side with the bars and restaurants, sales, marketing, got some experience in the off-premise with independents and chains, just learning that side of the business. At first, I really didn't want to, because I like the cool side of being at the bars and clubs.
Right.
But I'm so grateful that I did get that experience, because it's a whole other element and like works completely different. And just to get that experience, I'm very grateful now, especially in my role, that I'm here. So I worked various jobs within Golden Eagle Distributors, mainly sales and marketing, until Hensley Beverage purchased Golden Eagle back in 2016. So obviously Hensley's up in Phoenix. They were the big dog, and I was at the time the director of marketing down in Tucson. And, typically what happens when people take over is the higher up positions don't usually stay. They already have that in Phoenix. So we're going to keep it. They actually did keep me on. So I was very grateful for that. Learned a lot from coming with a bigger distributor and learning all of that, overall reins and contract negotiations, etc. And then in 2019, I I saw a posting for a position over here at Barrio. And I feel like at the time I had pretty much learned all that I really could on the wholesale side. I was looking to grow, but in order to grow, I would have to move to Phoenix, and I just really love Tucson. And I had known Dennis and Tana pretty much since Golden Eagle started distributing them in 2013.
Okay.
So I've had the knowledge of the product, have been selling the beer, had great relationships with everybody over here. So it was a chief operating officer position. Wasn't sure if I really had all the skills in it, but you know what? Why not?
Shoot
I'll
your
try
shot.
for it.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens, you know? And so met with Dennis and Tana. That's a very different interview experience. You know, I came from like the corporate side, and I think Gary was the same way. You come from the corporate side where you have a very, like, this is how you do things. You have a first interview, you have a second interview. Maybe you do a presentation for like that final role, whatever it may be, right?
Right.
Totally different. It's all about relationships and knowing Tucson. That was one of the things that Dennis and Tana had said, is like they had interviewed different people from around the country, and they were coming in saying, you need 5 people in your C-suite, you need this, this, this. And it's just like, Tucson is very different. Like even from Phoenix to Tucson, it's a totally different world.
Okay.
I mean, we both lived in Phoenix. We know that something may work great in Phoenix.
Yeah.
It's not going to work down here unless you get the buy-in from the city.
Right.
And they always like keep Tucson weird or whatever is like one of the things out there. It's not that we're weird. We're a very close, it's a big, small town.
Yeah.
Anyway, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And so,
I've noticed that. This is my first time in Tucson.
yeah.
I might have had a layover here at some point, but I've been to Phoenix. I've been to Scottsdale. I've been to Prescott. I have family in Prescott. I've never been to Tucson. And you're right. It does feel like a really big, small city.
Yeah,
And it's really fun.
it is.
Yeah.
I've loved my week here. So
I'm like, we're at City of Gastronomy. Like we're one of like 2, I think, in the nation. I think San Antonio's the only other one. Like we love our food. We love our beer. We love the small, close-knit community of the world. And so when I had applied, that was one of the things that they liked about me, is I understood Tucson. I knew that our market was different in Phoenix, but I also knew those other markets. I've had the wholesaler experience, so I could help grow our brand on the wholesale side throughout the state. And so they hired me on in 2019. My first day on the job, I was actually in San Diego, because one of the reasons they were looking to hire somebody is because Dennis and Tana were looking at their retirement. What's going to happen in the next phase, right?
sure.
And so they had opted to sell the company to the employees through an employee stock ownership plan. And so my first day was at a seminar for employee ownership
Wow.
at the University of UCSD, because they have a great program over there. And so first day on the job, already traveling, doing the week-long seminar to learn how this, and then coming back here to meet with the employees. I already knew some of them, but just to really get a hold of Barrio as a culture overall and take it to the next step
Yeah.
was really exciting to me. So
That's one of the things I thought was really cool when I was doing a little bit of research and seeing what breweries and distilleries exist on this side of the country. And you guys are proud of, you're 100% employee owned.
yeah, there's a lot of breweries that are employee owned that maybe started at like 30% or 40%. But the Arnolds just decided to go all in at 100%.
That's so wild.
So yeah.
And kudos to, that's really cool.
Yeah.
And there's a lot, obviously that gives a lot of buy-in to employees to be a part of the community, which is cool. And I think you're the first, or you're the first and only in Arizona?
We're the first and only in Arizona.
Okay.
There are multiple breweries throughout the country.
Yeah.
But in Arizona, I think even on the West Coast, for at least 100% owned, I think we were the first at the onset, but I think others have gone to 100%
I'm not sure, but
since then.
yeah, it's very cool. I mean, who doesn't want to be an employee owner, right? I mean, it's just cool. I think you have a piece of the,
Piece of the pie.
piece of the pie, so to speak. It's not like you can, it's funny how it's surprising though, with some people you have to sort of, they don't look at it that way. You have to, get some buy-in or whatever from them. They don't really see it, but sometimes that's the younger people as well. They don't, they don't see themselves here really long, maybe super long term, because maybe they come in for University of Arizona, and they're a server or bartender for a few years or something like that. They don't look at it, long term. But for those of us, like managers or who are a little bit further along in life, a little bit older or whatever, it's like, man, that was awesome. It's an awesome thing.
Were you both interested in beer? Like, were you beer drinkers coming up in college in your younger days like I was? I drank way too much Miller Lite because I was from Milwaukee. I can't touch Miller Lite now. And I gravitated away from beer into spirits because I loved that aspect, and it didn't hurt my gut as much. And then now I've got that issue resolved. I've come back around to craft beer and really love all the experimental things that are out there in the craft beer world. But what was your intro to alcohol? Did you ever think you'd be in a beer making world?
No, definitely not for me. It's strange. Maybe I'm an outlier in this respect too. So I go back to, so I went to college at Purdue University, right? That's where I got the engineering degree.
Sure.
So here I am in Indiana. So, and going back further to the 70s, whatever, we started a beer can collection, my brother and I. We still have like 3,000 or 4,000 beer cans, back at my brother's house in Indiana, right? So
that's cool.
Beer was part of the life, but to be honest, I don't think I drank beer until I was like 22, 23. I did not drink beer in college. I was not the party guy or whatever. I was focused and so forth. And then even after graduating, I would have been, maybe I should be ashamed to say, I was like just some of the mass produced or some of the import beers. But that was also, even though I was at Indiana, I had a job in Chicago. The craft beer industry still in the early 90s there wasn't many breweries yet.
Right.
In the Midwest, or hardly any at all, right? So I really hadn't been exposed to it at all. So I was still drinking those. It wasn't until the mid 90s. So, actually 1990, I moved out to California, the Bay Area, California, Walnut Creek, California. There was an environmental consulting job, and Mount Diablo is right there in Walnut Creek. There's a Diablo Brewing Company or something, some name on that, whatever. And we were all like 20 somethings, work hard, play hard, and we would hang out there. And that was my first microbrew experience. We would hang out there and drink the beer, and I thought, this is really cool. And that's when I started home brewing. Yeah. Actually. And then, obviously I'm a big beer drinker ever since. And I've loved the variety and and all the different beers available. Cause I think I just, when I was younger, it's like, there's nothing compelling about right. Bud Light or, Bud or Miller or Coors really, whatever. Right. So the flavor was what drew me in, and all the different styles. And then also it doesn't hurt, I suppose, my family heritage is German as well. So then you think about, the great history of German brewing and the German brewing tradition or whatever. It's like, this, maybe somewhere in the family there was a brewer back there, in Germany, whatever. So sure. This is what I should be doing. And drinking beer and then making beer.
I love that. Have you heard of Lakefront in Milwaukee?
Yes.
Yeah, I think they're like one of the oldest. Yeah. Like 1985 is when they started.
Yeah.
I know them. Obviously I grew up in Milwaukee, so I would go there visiting, and hey, beer and cheese curds. It's my diet.
Yeah.
No, I think it's interesting, even for me, and I don't want to date myself or make you guys know how young I am. But I graduated with my bachelor's in 2016. So, and high school in 2012. And those 4 years, 2012 to 2016, craft beer existed, but even compared to today, I feel like there's such an explosion of experiments on both the craft whiskey side and the craft beer side. And it's like, boy, if I had these options when I was in college or partaking earlier when my parents didn't know, holy cow. But I mean, Miller High Life was really all that we drank in college. No one had, you got to try this hazy fruited IPA or a fruited sour.
Yeah.
And now they're everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, now there's an 8% or a 10%. You got to try that now.
Yeah.
Well,
right? The closest we had was Four Loko.
Yeah. I mean, I can put some numbers on that, not to be too much, but so back in 1998 is when I got into the industry, right? I'm pretty sure I'm I'm factually correct. There was maybe 12 or 1,500 breweries in the U.S. Craft breweries in the U.S. Now we're over 9,000 or whatever.
Yep.
So there just wasn't the variety available, and it's just been an explosion of choice, and then that sort of spawned the whole everything from seltzers and more people doing ciders to the craft distillers, and everything. The whole beverage market is crazy. Although we're not so hot on the RTDs or ready to drink cocktails, whatever, because they potentially
they
take business from us.
Yeah,
but
well, I one thing I love about craft is no matter how big or small the craft either distillery or brewery is, you kind of have a lot more room to play than a big corporate guy. I'm curious, how much have you been able to play around here and just put out wazoo things? Do the brewers have a lot of a longer leash to try something new?
So when I first came over here from the wholesaler side, that was one of the things that the other sales reps that I worked with, they were like, hey, we love Barrio beers. You brew some quality stuff over there. But at the time, it was like all these brewers were doing all these crazy, weird things. And Barrio at the time was very traditional, like these are the beers that you do. Dennis didn't ever really want to do any sours because obviously contamination is a real thing, right? And so that was one of the things when I first came over here. Talked a little bit with Dennis, but then when Gary was hired on, that really gave us more of an ability because he has a vast amount of knowledge and be like, hey, this is a feedback that we're getting from the sales team from our wholesaler. What kind of different things can we do to help, make sure that we're still playing in the game? We've got great IPAs, we've got great blondes, but let's play around and do some fun stuff. And so that he's a master. He's done some great stuff. I'll let him take it over.
Well, at that point, I'd been in the industry, right? So, almost 20 years, whatever, right? I've brewed. I have a whole portfolio of beer styles. I brewed almost every beer style, defined beer style, whatever. So I could pretty much just, say, well, hey, I got proven, recipes, whatever, let's do it. Yeah. But obviously, within a production environment, being so, we're a pretty high volume. We're a high volume production brewery. So obviously working those in, fermenter rotations and working those in is always a challenge,
Right.
But it's something you need to do. And we've tried to work in, I think, pretty consistently, say at least six seasonals throughout the year, whatever. Some of that's for distribution that is all for distribution, which makes it, maybe a little more difficult. And then maybe you try to do some other things just for the restaurant. But, again, it's, but that was a big focus. I know we talked about that early on, and we've done everything from traditional German beers to started a whole sour series that we do during the summer now.
Sure.
And then you can just sours are great because you can just do like a base sour beer, and then you can do multiple flavors of it. Yeah. Right. Like we've done our, I like some of the names we've gotten or whatever. Right. So we have our strawberry rhubarb sour, which is Senior Sour.
Senior Sour.
SR Sour. I don't know. Some people don't get it.
Yeah.
We did a pineapple thing, and it was a SpongeBob SquarePants.
No,
I don't know if they'll come after us for that, but
no, we didn't have SpongeBob, but it was somewhat related to SpongeBob SquarePants. We did it in a way so we wouldn't get
copyright
issues.
Or something like that.
And that's one of my favorite parts about beer too. I'm still learning the craft beer market. I know the craft distillery whiskey market like the back of my hand. I told you guys before, I'm primarily a whiskey fanatic, and now I've come back in the last year towards craft beer and really have embraced all the varieties and flavors. And craft business is craft business. Small business and the alcohol industry is kind of synonymous, but I love the marketing and the playfulness behind beer, and whiskey doesn't have that. Whiskey is much more snobbish and elegant, and I get it, right? You're going to have a glass of or a Manhattan with a nice whiskey and a cigar in a lounge that doesn't look like it's a craft brewery. But craft beer and the naming conventions and the labels, and I think that's so fun. Yeah. I think there's more playfulness there, which I appreciate.
There definitely is. Yeah. But then there's a challenge of continuing to come up with something creative because it feels like every time you think of something, you do a quick Google search and it's already been taken by somebody.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But we love the distillers as well, right? Because we get whiskey barrels from them and so forth. And
true. We've done some barrel age series of things.
Done a good number of barrel aging or whatever over time. We have a nice, high alcohol, strong, sort of English strong ale style that we do. We put that in whiskey barrels or like imperial porters and things like that. Yeah. So it's always fun to get. I mean, we haven't done it yet here, but I've done things in like wine barrels or tequila barrels as well. Tequila barrels don't really work great.
Yeah.
Whatever, they're pretty dried out. Whatever.
I thought
But
we did
you
a
can do
blonde in a
some-
wine barrel, didn't we? Do a
Well, no,
blonde?
we did do that. Yeah, because you can do a
Yeah.
Belgian triple, and I'll swear by this. A Belgian triple in a Chardonnay wine barrel is a really nice.
Oh, that sounds good.
Comes out really nice. Whatever. So.
Yeah, I know like hazies and IPAs were all the rage for the last, I want to say 5 years ish. And now I've heard from many brewers that they when they go into business, they need to make a hazy. And then they realize that actually it's becoming like number 4 or 5 on their list. Have you guys experienced that? Has that
So
dipped?
our hazy that we have, our founder Dennis at first is like, I'm not going to do a hazy. It's just a fad. We're not going to do it. It's our number. It teeters between number 2 and number 3 for us.
Okay.
Our Hipsterville Hazy IPA. So I don't really think it's dipped.
No,
We're
not really.
Still doing pretty strong here, at least
Not
in
at all.
Tucson.
And to put that in perspective, yeah, so we do 12. Well, I guess we're up to 12 beers that we do year round.
Okay.
And out of those, obviously, Blonde is our flagship. Our Blonde Ale is our flagship number 1 seller. But yes, our Hipsterville Hazy IPA is number 2. So yeah, you have to. And IPAs still rule in general.
Yeah.
You know, you still, whenever if you're ever in doubt about to do a seasonal beer, you can always do an IPA. You know, change the hops or use some new experimental hops or something, whatever, and there will be a market for it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So
I've always, I guess I've heard a lot of non-beer drinkers are finding themselves liking a fruited sour and getting more into sours. And I've seen a lot of younger breweries, much less established than you guys, who are like, well, we got to put all our money in the sours. We got to have the most wazoo wild sours with the fruitiest of flavors, and it'll sell to that seltzer crowd. Or a lot of brewers are making a lot of seltzers.
Let's see, the thing with like the sours is like maybe you have 1, 2, you're not going to drink multiple.
Oh no, yeah.
So that's one of the reasons. That's another reason why Dennis originally didn't go on the sour run, is because you want somebody who's going to drink a couple beers and have a good conversation with people, not have one and then be like, oh, I can't have any more.
Yeah.
Seltzer's not as much, but I mean, that's why we do our sour series in the summer when it's really hot here. When we have like 3 or 4 different varieties when we're in town.
Is it I know you. It must be such a daunting calculus to figure out the market and understand. Okay, well, where can we put in that experimental run? Where can we put the seasonal beer in? Because as someone who I don't work in the industry, I do media and do this, but I've thought about opening or doing home brewing or opening up a distillery or do something with some friends. And I just bought a house in North Carolina that has a well on it, so I'm like, how can I use that water for other than gardening? Don't tell the ATF. but it just seems daunting. Like that seems like such a, I don't know. I've watched a lot of people get too big for their britches and try too many things, and then they fail.
He lives this every day because I'm like, hey, we should do this. Hey, we should do that. We should do this. And he's like, Jamie, we only have so many tanks. We only have this.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you have to be able to execute. I mean,
right.
But again, that comes, it does come, some of that comes back to it. Obviously, it's helpful that we're well established, and people will trust us.
Right.
So, to be honest, we have a loyal set of accounts that they'll pretty much take whatever seasonal we wish to offer.
Okay.
They will put it on tap.
That's cool.
So obviously that's a big benefit that you can already have, sort of a base level volume that you're pretty certain you can sell. But you're right. You just don't. It's a constant battle. You don't really know. And with all the options and IPA still ruling and so forth, obviously the big industry trend now is, people are still want to have that, nice, easy, drinkable one. And Mexican lagers are really having their day right now. I mean, even for the mass produced beers as well, right?
Yeah.
Modelo has taken over. The number 1 spot is, from Bud Light and so forth. So, and obviously that makes a lot of sense. You need to have that, like our Blonde Ale flagship, because again, you're in the business to sell beer, right? It's great to make these esoteric, large, these big, bold flavor profiles, high alcohol. But how many of those can you drink?
Right.
Right. They're special occasion beers, whatever it may be, whatever. Right. And
Yeah. Well, that's
you want people to drink 3, 4. Not one.
I love stouts. I cannot have more than maybe a little snifter before I'm full, and maybe it's a winter beer, and I'm just like, it's good, and I'll have a couple sips of it, and I'm like, I can't do this thing. It's 10+%, so but.
Yeah, that's my problem. My favorite beers, I joke, if it pours like motor oil, it's my beer. Like if it has high alcohol, porter stout, like that's my jam. But if I get a 16 ounce, whatever, I'm only drinking half of that in one sitting. I have to share it with somebody just because I want to have something else and not worry about getting home.
Right.
So, although I love to tease her that's a woman thing, whatever, right? Because my wife is the same way. All these years of me in the craft beer industry, I drag her to microbrewery after microbrewery, whatever, right? And it seems like we'll just do a flight, and what is her favorite? The highest alcohol one on the menu, whatever.
And I appreciate IPAs, but I don't regularly drink IPAs. I'm more on the malty side of it, and so that's where I'm like, that's what I drink. Like this is my favorite overall. That's the porter. So but that's not a high alcohol one. That's
this just made me think of it. We don't have to go down the rabbit hole of laws, but I'm always curious traveling different states and hearing about different alcohol laws. Distilleries have it a lot harder than breweries in a lot of senses, but there's some laws in North Carolina that restrict breweries from serving more than 2 beers over, I think it's 8.5% to clientele. How is Arizona? How is Tucson? How is it state controlled here, or is it locally controlled, or are they just hands off, let you do what you want?
You want to take that?
You can have all that.
No, well, it's more or less hands off. Yeah,
Okay.
I think it is. It is pretty much.
It's being responsible overall.
Yeah.
Like we have,
Yeah.
like we have our NCAA beer that we have, our NCAA ale to be whatever, and that one is served in a 10-ounce porter.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so that's how we make sure that we're being responsible on our end. If it's a higher ABV, then you're going to get it in a 10-ounce at first, or not at first. If you want another one, you'll get another 10-ounce, but you're not going to get a full pint all the time.
Yeah.
Of that bad boy.
Yeah.
So
No, that makes sense.
But yeah, for the most part, we're pretty liberal. But we've had a strong craft brewers guild as well that's worked over the years to change things like beer to go laws. For growlers. It used to be you couldn't take beer to go if you had a second restaurant location but not a brewery there. You couldn't take beer to go out of there. You had to have the microbrewery license, and then we got stuff like that changed. And there was there used to be something with you could only have so much max volume of beer in front of a guest, like you had a flight and so forth.
Okay.
But
you can only serve 25 ounces at a time.
Yeah.
Okay.
But strangely, a little aside on that basically got changed because they would have
50,
the big.
Sorry, because it's 2 25 ounces.
Now
it's 50 ounces.
Okay.
But it used to be only like 32 ounces, right? But then you'd have these big 22-ounce bomber bottles like at the D-back stadium, but you couldn't go get 2 and bring one back to your seat, right? So then when there's the powers that be that, that's like, the whatever that can get that changed fast, or like, they didn't like that. So then that got changed pretty fast, whatever. Then and that volume got upped. But no, we're pretty liberal, because I know what you're talking about, because early in my career, late 90s, when my brewing career in Tennessee, I couldn't brew a beer above 6.3% by volume alcohol.
Okay.
Whatever, right? So we would do like these seasonal winter Bock beers or Bock beers, whatever. And I was the one location that couldn't brew it or whatever, right? Within the Gordon Beers family, because it wasn't allowed in Tennessee. So it was just, kind of silly, but that's like they had the state stores and things were different. And
I'm originally from Wisconsin, which is the Wild West for alcohol. Lax drinking and driving laws and lax alcohol laws. Just a great combination. But it's really cold, so I understand people need to self-medicate. But you could buy Everclear at a Walgreens.
Oh, yeah.
And then I moved to Virginia, which is a controlled state. Then I moved to North Carolina, which is an even more controlled state.
It's very interesting, state by state, how it differs, right?
I know. And
it's crazy.
And I commend a lot of the craft brewers and distillers who are able to navigate that. And I give a lot of kudos, even in controlled states, where the counties and the cities are very, very pro small business, and they're there to help you. And I'm sure it sounds like, from what I've heard from you, that Tucson is a really great community, and the city probably loves you guys. You're a watering hole, as is your fellow craft brewers around the area. So like the laws are stupid, and a lot of them are written from like pre-prohibition era and haven't been changed because the legislators probably don't even know that they're there. And then, but they're going to help you navigate it, which is pretty cool. Hey y'all, Allan Cogan here with Crafted Conversations. If you want to support the show and the mission of sharing the stories of craft, head over to buymeacoffee.com/craftedconvos. I'd really appreciate throwing a couple bucks my way to help me pay for travel, the equipment that I use, the time that I spend editing, all the software that I use. I really appreciate any support you can give me. And if you can't afford a couple bucks, at least give me some feedback or go over to your YouTube and subscribe or follow us on Spotify. Anything helps to make sure that we share the story of craft and give these small business owners a little limelight and get them out on a platform that really showcases what they're doing. I can't do this without you guys or your support, so I would really appreciate you pitching in and helping out. So I'll see you out there, and I really appreciate it. Cheers.
Yeah, I would say that the Arizona Craft Brewers Guild has been really good about helping out breweries big and small.
Yeah.
They listen to the different breweries. Like right now, they're advocating to reduce the minimum barrelage for breweries so they don't get fined.
Oh, I see.
So there's different things like that they're constantly getting feedback from the breweries. What do we need to take to the legislature this year? And yeah, I've done some research on different states and their liquor laws, and yeah, we by far have a lot of flexibility compared to some other states, which I'm appreciative for.
And like you say, I think the state's gone, or local community has gone along with it because it's smaller, independently owned businesses, local businesses. I mean, again, when I moved to Arizona in 2006, we had about 12 or 15 breweries. We have 100 or 105 is something, or 120 now is the number. So yes. So yeah, you should get behind that, right? This is, and we've done that. The guild has done that as well, like the economic impact of that. I don't know what the numbers are, but obviously it's significant. You're hiring a significant number, employing a significant number of people, and it's an economic impact because there's plenty of people that, that's brewery tourism, whatever. Oh, yeah. That's what they do when they're on vacation, right? Or local, they visit breweries. I know I do. Yeah. I don't go anywhere without researching the local breweries in that destination, and I will go to one or two, for sure.
I told Jamie on the phone yesterday when we were prepping for this that I was here on Sunday and I had a beer and we had some snacks, and then we went down to Slow Body, we went down to Pueblo Vita, and it's like, and yeah, I was doing a little bit of research for like, well, who can I talk to, and who do I have time for, and and then it's like, this is kind of cool. I can just walk to all these places. Yeah. Tucson's awesome.
Yeah.
It reminds me of Milwaukee, where there's a bar every 5 feet.
Right? I love it. Yeah. I love that there's so many more in our market, like it builds more community overall. And we all know, like, distillers, brewers, we all give back to the community as much as we can as well. Like, we sponsor a lot of events. We give to different charities, and that's one of the elements. I hope people know that as small businesses, we try and make sure that we're doing as much as we can in the community. And if you don't, we do. We do a lot of it just because we know that the only reason that we're here, and actually that's one of the reasons why our founders went to employee ownership, is the only reason we're here is because of the community and the people that make it happen, right? We've been able to be here for 30 years plus because of that. So
yeah. One of the cool things too that I love about craft is that I don't think you guys feel threatened by the craft brewery down the street.
No.
You guys are probably friends. You know each other. Yeah. You probably have collabed before on different products. I love that aspect. And at the same token, Anheuser-Busch and Miller or Molson Coors, they aren't threatened by the craft beer community as much either. Kind of have your own lanes.
It's weird to me because, like I said, on the wholesaler side, it was always like, they're the enemy. Like Miller Coors, you don't talk to them. They don't know what they're doing, whatever, And then you come into the craft beer world, and it's totally different mindsets. Like, hey, we work with everybody. We do different beers together. We'll help each other out if we need with different things. And it's a totally different environment. I absolutely love that.
I've always loved that about the industry. It's like it's very sharing, whatever. It always has been. There's a few people there around there, but nobody ever comes back and say, oh, I can't tell you how I do that, whatever. That's proprietary. That's a secret. Everyone is always very open. And it's like, oh no, this is what I do. Maybe maybe we want to try that, or maybe we want to try something different. Yeah. And you're right. I don't think we're threatened by even somebody down the street, because really then you become a destination area. Right. That's actually better, right?
Exactly.
Because people can walk to
went to 3 different places.
I went to 3 different places. Yeah, that's right. You all got my money.
You park, you park once and you walk around and visit 3 places. That's a win-win.
You should all get together on a shuttle and just have a circuit.
Our buddies over at Boda Sonora down the street, they've talked about doing something, because we've also got Iron John's, which is a little like less than 5 miles away from here too. And there is definitely something that we could do to build that for sure. So who knows, one day.
I love that. How's your distribution? Are you in other states? Is that hard, or is Arizona pretty friendly with that?
We are just in Arizona.
Okay.
Our founder had always said, he didn't really see, or they didn't really see us moving outside of Arizona. I'm not going to say we never will, but at the same time, I think it's always said you got to own your home market before you go outside, right?
Yes.
And there's still a lot of opportunity for us in the Phoenix market and Northern Arizona market to do more before we try to expand. Our wholesaler recently has purchased a distributor in New Mexico. And so they're like, hey, do you want to distribute in New Mexico? Love New Mexico, but I'm not really comfortable moving into another state when we still have a lot of opportunity here first. Yeah. So
that's been a big conversation at the convention that I'm here for, is especially because the economy and things in life and politics that we won't get into, but that's another show. More censored. But it's been a roller coaster for a lot of small brands, especially for distillers and brewers. And I wish there was more people who are willing to stay and own their home market, because as appealing as it is to, I can get to 50 different states. It's like, is it sustainable for you?
Yeah.
That's very difficult. If you can own your little corner of the globe and make your community happy, that's awesome. And that doesn't mean you're a bad brand because you're not big. I think that makes you better. You're more local. I love that.
Yeah. Well, and the truth with us is we're still, we sell more in the Tucson market, right? So
we're at 70% in Tucson.
Oh, wow.
So
but
we
Phoenix
still have a lot of growth opportunity.
Phoenix is 4 to 5 times the size, population wise, whatever, right? So yes, we have a lot of, we have a lot more opportunities. There's still a lot of different opportunities. And from a strictly, brewer's perspective, I guess quality as well, the further geographic distance your beer is distributed, the less control you have over it, and the more that, potential headaches. And then you have to hire a salesperson in that state. And, sometimes it's a battle, just within your own state, with your distributor, rotating product and taking care of everything, logistics and everything. So it's just like, that's just,
it's done. Yeah. I talked to a distillery in Milwaukee who's doing RTDs with Lannenkugels. Lannenkugels is making it and canning it for them out of their distillate. And they got an offer. I think it might've been Arizona or New Mexico. It was the West Coast. And they were like, we love Wisconsin brandy old fashioned. We have Packers bars and, Wisconsin themed bars or Midwest themed bars. We want to serve your RTD old fashioned here. They turned it down. It's like, we can't make your volume and also ship to you and also stay in our market. But also as an owner mindset, it's like, that sounds kind of cool. How do we get to yes?
Yeah.
That might be 5 years down the road, but yeah. Anyway.
So I don't say it's not like a no.
Right.
Hey, at some point, like even my kids are like, Mom, you should go to California. You should do this. I'm like, do you not want to see me? Is that what you're trying to tell me? Like, obviously we love to grow, but we're going to do it smart and in a sustainable way. So.
For sure. No, I love how close-knit Tucson seems to be. I'm sure you, like you said, you're involved in the community. You're doing a bunch of stuff. Talk a little bit about that pride in Tucson. I'm not from here. I'm Midwest, and now I'm on the East Coast. What is the culture like here? Is it very brewery centric? There's like 40 breweries within walking distance, which is awesome for me when I'm traveling. Are people beer drinkers here? Is it?
There's definitely a good, and we've seen even more over the last few years, like specifically supporting local.
Okay.
That's been a big draw overall. We've got a great biking community out here in Tucson, and they definitely support the local craft breweries. I mean, we have like pickleball is a big thing right now, right? So like if there's people like there's support, like any kind of sport imaginable, they're supporting the local breweries. We support with different sponsorships or whatever we can do.
Right.
But yeah, it's just like, it is very, people, when they think of Tucson or even Phoenix or whatever, like they're looking to go to their favorite local craft brewery. And we've seen it in sales, not only in our tap room, but also in the market overall. It's a little bit of a struggle when you go into like the chains and everything like that, when your big brands are putting a lot more money into it, but we're still on the shelf. There's a good amount of local beers still on the shelf, and they're seeing some positive numbers, which is cool. But yeah, just, I don't know if you want to add to it. Just
I mean, it's always been a local, tenet of or always been a credo of craft beer drinkers, drink local, obviously, as well. And people are very supportive here in Tucson, and maybe more so, as well. That's the, dare say it, the rivalry to some respect between Phoenix and Tucson. Like we alluded to a little bit before, there are plenty of people here that you'll run into. I mean, I have good friends as well. It's like, I would never live in, they're Phoenix people. I would never live in Tucson. And there's people vice versa. It's kind of strange because they can be, a bit different. Like you say, Tucson is much more the, the small, big city, whereas Phoenix is, it is much more sort of impersonal, and you always go, whatever, high end, I don't know. But, I don't know.
I mean,
I've really enjoyed it since because I lived 15 years in Phoenix as well. I really, to be honest, the Tucson vibe is more me. Yeah. Really. So,
like you have your big local, trying to bring more business to Tucson overall. Like we have our Arizona Bowl we support.
Yep.
It's our bowl game here.
Yep.
And we've supported that for many, I can't remember.
As long as I've been here.
But we've always been the local craft beer. They give 100% of the proceeds from that bowl game to charities. So we definitely try and work with those. Like the Cogan Classic just happened last week. It's a big golf tournament, PGA Tour. We support that. They have the First Tee involved, which gets young kids, golf related, making sure that they have different things to do. So when we can align with different charitable organizations to help do good for the community responds.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I love that. What is on the horizon for Barrio? Is there anything super awesome coming up that you guys want to do or have planned? Or that's a good question too. Is there anything that you haven't been able to do yet, but you want to? You're itching for?
Maybe that's, wait, she's giving me this smirk and a smile, like she's going to make my life more difficult, whatever.
We need to call legal.
Well,
quick.
no, we have done a fair amount in the last couple of years, but again, like you said, we try to do it in a smart way, because once you sort of commit to something, you want to be able to sustain it, whatever, as well, right? So like with some variety 12 packs, we've introduced 2 new ones here just recently. Our Mexican lager is is a newer beer that we just in the last year offered year round. And we do want to go, we do have ideas to go into cans with that. Right now it's just draft only. Okay. So that's probably the next thing on the, I suppose, on the horizon. But I mean, certainly as far as styles and so forth, we've circled through a lot of different things, beer styles. So there's nothing really that stands out, just kind of keep offering some variety, for those, those seasonal beers and so forth. But, and just be successful. The thing is with the market as it is, or the industry as it is, flat is you should be happy with flat. With no growth, or maybe even minimal loss. If you even decline 1 or 2%, you should be very happy and thankful for that. And we feel like we're in a really good spot, and we have been there, the last 5 years, whatever. So, we'd be happy to, just stick with what we have. Again, you have to maybe add a beer or something, and things still shift a little bit, so you still have to maybe change your mix of beers or so forth to maintain that overall, volume and profitability. But we feel good.
We've always just brewed beer with whatever our people in our tap room are asking for, what the market is asking for. Actually, the Mexican lager that we came out with, that was a seasonal or specialty last year. It was just going to be a one-off. And It did really well.
Okay.
We have some tap rooms up in Phoenix, in Mesa and Deer Valley, and they were like, that was our number 3 selling brand when we had it in here. Are you considering ever doing it year round? And so we looked at all the numbers and told Gary, like, hey, we got the space for it. Can we make it happen? He didn't say it, but so the Arizona Craft Brewers Guild, they do beer awards every year. Well, this is the third year.
Third year.
I should know. Third year.
3 years they did. Yeah.
Happens every October, and he won a gold or Barrio won a gold, but it's his brainchild for the Mexican lager. And
awesome.
so he's really proud of that. We're all really proud of that one. And so, yeah, we see the numbers with Mexican lagers overall. One of our board members is a chief economist for the NBWA, and he's like, hey, this is the style that's really doing well right now.
Yeah.
Should look into that. So that's one of the reasons why.
Yeah. We did it.
Definitely moving forward with that Mexican lager. It's delicious. We should have you try it.
Yes.
It's this one right here, but I'll get you a cold one.
Okay. Yeah, no, you had alluded to that earlier about Mexican lager kind of taking over. I think Modelo, did they move to number 1?
They did.
That's so wild.
Yeah.
Because I'm a big, when I was in college, it was on the Miller Lite, or it was, oh crap, what's Corona?
Yeah.
But then my dad was a big Jimmy Buffett fan, and that means I'm a big Jimmy Buffett fan. So Land Shark, because all the marketing dollars that he threw behind that.
Yeah.
Land Shark and a margarita is a good Sunday for me. But yeah, I've been impressed with how many distillery breweries have pivoted to Mexican lagers.
There's some great ones out there too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, do you feel like you have to play to the market, or do you feel like you have a little bit more of a playful, like, yeah, the tap room wants this and the market's going this direction, but also I kind of want to try this. I want to make this sour. Do you have that room, or is it more so?
Yeah. I think sure, we have that room. Yeah. And that's going to be it's going to be a smaller volume thing, right?
Sure.
Again, you're not going to be able to, you're sticking with your big, your highest selling, obviously your, flagships, so to speak. And, and once you're in cans, you're like we are, and then you're in the Fry's, the Safeways, the Walmarts, the chain distribution, obviously, you do whatever you can to maintain, that,
right.
Obviously. So that always still has to be, from a business perspective, has to be priority 1 or whatever, right? You have to keep that, make sure that supply line stays full, and, nobody gets word that you can't,
That's me.
Yeah, you can't supply it, because then there's like, then I'll just go get somebody else, that kind of a thing. So,
Right.
but yeah, we can certainly always find opportunities to, but nobody has a crystal ball, it's always, who knows what's the, who knows what the next, if there is going to be a next big thing, I wish I'd be able to predict it or whatever. I'd probably maybe be retired already.
Yeah, $1 million. Yeah, I wish I had a crystal ball, man. I do think it's pretty cool how much room that craft has to play and just kind of do whatever. You don't have a corporate overlord to watch over you, but at the same time, you guys are unique in the fact that you're employee owned, and is the owner there? I shouldn't say the owner. You guys are owners. Is the founder still involved as part of the process, or has he been more kind of hands off? And how much was he a brewer or part of the brewing process in the beginning?
So founders, it's actually at the time a husband and wife team.
Okay.
So Dennis Arnold, he is the brewer, and he's also the one that crafted a lot of the food that we have, because that's his first 2 loves are food and beer, right? I think when he put his business plan together, it was very short. It was something like make great beer, drink for free the rest of your life, or something like that. And so it was a good tandem between the two of them, because he handled that aspect and Tana handled visually what you see here and the overall operations. She's very creative.
Yeah,
like
I love
this
it.
tree behind you can't really see, but that was her vision right there.
Yeah.
They're both involved. So Dennis is the chairman of our board. So he comes in every now and then, just check on things, give his feedback on things, and we thank him for his expertise, and we'll let him know if we decide to run with it or not, because we do still have that flexibility. Tana is still involved. She helps us with the on the accountant side of things, kind of like a part-time thing. But I mean, this was their baby for 30 years. So when they first sold it, it's not like we expected them to just be like, peace out, we're going to go travel the world. I think they should go travel as much as they could, because that's what I would do.
You're right.
But I fully understand, this is their brainchild. And so they still come by, they say hi, they give their input, and we take it from there with whether or not we decide to run with it, or maybe we just table it, or maybe it's just not the right fit.
Yeah. That's cool. I love that it sounds like they have a lot of trust in the employee ownership, and that relationship still exists, and that you guys carry on the legacy that they built. Like you said, it's their brainchild for 30 years. It'd be hard for me to let go of.
Yeah.
I would feel like I want to come in here and control everything you do.
Yeah.
It's funny, when I first started, I think they went on a trip to Europe, and I was just like, okay, I guess you trust that I'm going to do everything correctly.
Yeah, I'd be terrified.
Appreciate it. And everything obviously worked out fine.
Right.
But it's nice that they feel that they have it in good hands to not totally change up everything, because that's not our intent. Obviously, we're going to add some elements.
Sure.
Being employee owned, we have a lot of great employees who have great ideas of different things. So we want to make sure that we're implementing some of those, but at the same time, the foundation remains.
Right.
Yeah. And I think it has taken a little while to, Jamie was really just a year before me or so forth, right? So it was kind of, in some ways you can say that, their baby for all these years, 30 years, and then you're kind of turning it over to two new people.
Yeah.
Right. So sure, I think it did take I'll be honest, I feel like it took them a little while to, at least from Dennis's, I deal more with Dennis, whatever, on the beer side, the brewing side or whatever, that, it took them a while to, let go, and I was always encouraging too. It's like, man, if I was you, I would be, I would be travel, man. What's wrong with you? But yeah, and sure, obviously they need a period to trust us, I suppose. But it's been,
I think it's, and this story specifically, especially because you guys are employee owned, and how that kind of genesis. I think as a beer drinker and a craft brewery and distillery lover, and people who either watch this show or who know me, and they're just casual, they don't know the business side of the humanity behind what goes into making this good product. And I really appreciate that from you guys. I can tell that you care about the product, you care about the brand, you care about the ownership who transferred and their legacy, and you're making good stuff. I mean, the active brewery is going on right now, and I know the TLC's there. So I appreciate that. And I really wished more emphasis was put on behind the scenes of the brand, and because you forget, this is a business at the end of the day. You have payroll, you have bills, you have people with mortgages and kids.
The non-fun part of it.
The non-fun part.
But essential.
Say right. And breaking up the mythos that the brewers are just drinking all day and getting drunk, and like, no, you guys are doing a very explicit science that is making good product. So. Yeah,
and I'll give a shout out to the guys, whatever, in the brewery. It's a small team, but you're right. It's like everything else. Well, they do love what they do, and there has to be a passion about it, because it's like anything else. There's repetition.
Yeah,
you're right. Somebody still has to, flip kegs and wash kegs, for hours. The brewing process, the filtering process. There's a lot of it that's very same. So you really need to. You need to want to do it, and you have a passion about it, but you feel good about, and proud of that you're producing a product that people can enjoy.
Right.
And, and again, we're a small team. It's just me plus 8.
Wow.
It's just the 9 of us that do everything. And an honorary brewer who's our full-time maintenance guy who really hangs out. He prefers to hang out in the brewery when he doesn't have to fix stuff in the kitchen. But, so it's really, it's a small team, but
I think one of the first things that I learned when I came over here is just how much of the time the brewers spent on cleaning. I don't think people really understand how much that element, just making sure that you have sanitary tanks and everything else going on.
It's a food grade product.
Yeah.
So it is.
At the convention, I ran into a kind of a big industry guy. I won't name drop him, but we were talking, and he knows my show, and we were just kind of bullshitting about some different things and ideas, and kind of about the same theme of how people don't know what some of the dirty work that goes into back there and to make this good beer. When someone comes in here on a tour, and a lot of places are made for tours, and I laugh every time I see a brewery or distillery that's just immaculate. I'm like, do you work here? But we were joking about making a show or doing some kind of version of a video of a part of maybe of this show, where we do a Dirty Jobs version.
Yeah, it's a
of
great
like
show.
you just
Yeah.
put me in knee pads and gloves and send me back there, and you think this is easy? You like that beer that you're drinking? Well, here,
Yeah.
go clean the mash tun.
Exactly. Yeah. Crawl in there when it's 160 degrees or whatever.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
have to do something about it. Yeah. So,
I'm trademarking that show. It's mine.
yeah.
Love that.
No, well, thank you guys so much. This is such an awesome space, awesome testament to craft brewing. I can tell you're passionate about the project and the product that you make. I'm a fan. I wish I was more local so I could drink your beer more often. But if I'm ever in the area, I'll hit you up and let you know, and stop at a couple places on the way, and enjoy the beer.
Yeah.
Love
Gives
it.
you a reason to come back and enjoy some
Right?
desert time.
Exactly.
Right.
And I have a place that if someone's like, hey, I'm going to Tucson for this random conference, I say, hey, you got to hit up Barrio.
Totally. We appreciate it. Yeah. We appreciate you coming by. It's pretty awesome.
Of course.
Yeah.
I'm glad to talk to you guys.
This
Thanks
has
for the
been
time.
fun.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, cheers. I'll see you guys
Thanks.
soon.
Cheers. I got a little bit left
Yeah.
here.
I wanted to save some.
Clink.
If you enjoyed this episode, I'd really appreciate a follow and share on social media, subscribe to our YouTube, and be sure to give us a rating and review on your favorite podcast platform. Everything you see and hear is out of pocket for us, including travel. If you support our mission of showcasing the amazing stories behind these small businesses, do me a favor and head over to buymeacoffee.com/craftedconvos. Buy Me a Coffee is an awesome way to help creators like me with simple one-time donations or a monthly contribution. Every dime goes into giving these breweries, distilleries, and more some much-deserved limelight. If you have any questions or concerns, please reach out. Cheers!